Cut! It seems like everything these days tries to have at least one oneer. You know, one unbroken shot that lasts a couple of minutes that makes the audience say, wow, what a shot! They're not a new concept. Alfred Hitchcock's 1948 crime thriller Rope was filmed solely with long takes. Each shot either begins or ends with a push into a foreground object so they could be made seamless. Now, people often say Rope is one unbroken shot, but that's not true. Hitchcock alternates between seamless cuts and hard cuts. Now, the hard cuts in Rope still don't disrupt the overall pacing of the narrative, which still seemingly plays out in real time. Rope was a film adaptation of a stage production, and Hitchcock used the long takes to present the film in the same way one would see it at a theatrical setting, where editing is impossible. Before I go on, I should talk about what editing does before I talk about taking it away. The biggest thing it provides is context, to help the audience better understand the scene at hand by juxtaposing shots together. An exterior establishing shot, cutting to an interior shot, helps establish the location of the characters in the audience's mind. A character shot from below looking up will have more power and more weight than a character shot from above looking down. By cutting between those two characters, between those two shots, you can give the audience a better understanding of the power dynamic at play between the two characters. Editing is also able to give the audience crucial plot information or highlight important objects without characters explicitly having to draw attention to it. By using a close-up of something, the audience is given the contextual information that the object of that close-up is important to the narrative without it ever needing to come in contact with a character. In my previous video, I talked about the idea of diegesis. Editing is generally a non-diegetic element in film. Characters are not aware of it, but the audience is. The other primary element that editing controls is time. I can exit the frame here and sit down here, and your brain can fill in the gap of time it took me to move. I also kept that bookshelf in the background to give you some locational context of the room that I'm in. Now you know there's a door to my left. Context. Because editing controls time, and time is a limited resource in film, directors tend to want to only show you things that are crucial to the narrative. So when they choose not to cut, they're telling you that everything that they're showing you is necessary for the story. Now, this is a subjective necessity. Just because they're showing it doesn't mean it's objectively a crucial story piece, just that the director believes it to be so. There's one director who uses the device consistently well, Alfonso Cuarón. It's kind of his thing. Great Expectations, Y Tu Mamá También, Roma, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban all use long takes to various degrees. But I want to talk about two of his most famous, Children of Men and Gravity. In 2006, Cuarón brought us to the dystopian near future in which the human race found itself unable to reproduce. A reluctant protagonist, Theo, finds himself escorting a miraculously pregnant woman through a dangerous, collapsing society. Cuarón actually uses long takes throughout Children of Men, but I want to look at the two most memorable. They're the two shots that are most often cited as the best shots from the movie. The first is a scene in a car, and it opens with Key waking Theo up. But before this shot, I want to show you the shot that precedes it. First, you hear the birds chirping, and then you hear a car radio, and the DJ is waxing nostalgic about the past that they used to have.
A blast from the past all the way back from 2003, that beautiful time when people refused to accept the future.
Because editing is about context, and the context here is that things are calm. One of the things that works so well in this shot is the ability for the audience to almost become another passenger in the car. The camera stays centered. We're in the middle of the conversation between all these characters. And as the characters reminisce about their past, we're not paying attention to what's around them in the present.
You told me he was suave. When kids are drunk.
He's suave. Should have seen him in the old days when he was a real activist.
You were the activist. I just wanted to get laid.
It's not until we're prompted by Miriam to turn around and look out the front window that we even see the dangers that are coming for them. The illusion of comfort from the beginning of the scene is completely shattered. We're as trapped in this car as the characters are. In the end, they and the audience along with them are pursued by a pair of cops who pull them over. Luke murders them, and the camera and the audience by proxy exit the vehicle with Theo in protest to this sudden killing.
Why did you do that?
Get in the car!
We have to get back in now. Quickly, we gotta get off the road. Get in.
Theo gets back in the car, but the camera is left to linger as the survivors drive away. Theo is past the point of no return.
He's an accomplice to the murder of 2 police officers. The audience is left behind with their bodies. We are given the context of Luke's choice and the consequences that has for Theo, who now has no choice but to complete the task at hand and get Key to safety. It cuts directly from the dead bodies of the police officers to the dead body of Julian. We don't have an emotional connection to the police officers, but we do have an emotional connection to Julian. They are intrinsically tied together as part of the cost of the journey to get Key and her child to safety. The other famous Warner in Children of Men is towards the end of the film. This shot is over 6 minutes long, and part of why it works so well is there's a clear narrative inside of the shot. Key and the baby are kidnapped and Theo is forced to chase after them. Unlike the car scene, there's never a point in this shot where we're supposed to be relaxed. Accordingly, the score underneath is mostly discordant strings, inharmonious noise to accentuate the chaotic nature Theo is fighting through. The camera here moves much like Theo, tethering us to him. When he's crouched down, the camera is low to the ground, as though we're right alongside of him. And like him, we aren't allowed to see what's around the next corner until he does. The fact that it never cuts means we never get a break from the tension. The danger that was narrowly avoided seconds before is still just steps away, with the potential to come back at any moment. But just like that danger, Key, who was taken within the shot, is also just steps ahead of him, just out of reach, as Theo sneaks his way to her. Blood hits the lens, it hits us. Ironically, it helps to immerse us in the world and the danger therein by revealing the fourth wall. It tells us the camera, our window into the narrative, is a part of the world, and when you combine that with the movement of the camera that feels grounded, tied to a person, it has weight, it has impact. We feel the footsteps. We're not watching a drama anymore, we're watching a documentary. We feel every step of Theo's journey to find and save Key, and it's unrelenting. It's only when they're reunited and she begins to go with him that the film cuts. He's reached his goal, and the cut signifies the start of the next scene, Theo's final confrontation with Luke.
I've forgotten what they look like. They're so beautiful. They're so tiny.
Cuarón had solid narrative motivation for both of these shots, and he executed them beautifully. He did the same thing for the opening shot of his 2013 film, Gravity, the story of an astronaut stranded in the vastness of space after a catastrophic event destroyed her shuttle.
Gravity opens on a view of Earth. Just like the car scene from Children of Men, it's serene and it's tranquil. The first thing you hear is the radio communication between the astronauts in Houston.
Medical is concerned about your ECG reading.
I'm fine, Houston.
Well, medical doesn't agree, Doc. Are you feeling nauseous?
Not any more than usual, Houston. Diagnostics are green.
And then the shuttle, which started as just another star in the sky, begins to grow as it moves closer and closer to camera. In many ways, this mirrors the car shot from Children of Men. The first half has our characters relaxed and unaware of the dangers that lie ahead. But here the camera is free, it's smooth, it's weightless. Its motion isn't tied to any one thing, but it's realistic to the microgravity of the environment we find ourselves in. What's achieved by not cutting is an ever-increasing tension. Cuarón is able to give us some exposition about the characters while also showing us their last few minutes of calm. But there's an undercurrent of tension, even through the calm, and it's not just the idea that the audience, who is largely aware of the premise of the film going in, knows that something will eventually go wrong. Because editing controls time, by not cutting here, Cuarón is telling us that the time here is essential. We may not recognize it consciously, rather we intuit that the longer the shot remains uneventful, the more likely it will end in disaster. There's a nice thematic tie-in with Dr. Stone as well. She's claiming to be fine, but Houston, almost from the beginning, is concerned about her ECG readings. It's a subtle thematic tie-in to the idea that things are not as tranquil as they may seem.
Medical now have you with a temperature drop to 35.9 and a heart rate rise to 70. How are you feeling?
Houston, I'm fine.
Like George Clooney's character Kowalski, the camera is untethered to anything, and as such, it floats around. Cuarón was not bound by earthly physics to make all of this work. Because of the weightless environment, he's able to push in for close-ups and pull back for a wide shot when it's called for, but without the camera feeling impossible in the way that many full CG shots fall victim to. It always feels motivated, and with Kowalski's jetpack, he's showing us that the movements the camera make are entirely possible within the logic of the narrative. Cuarón has managed to make weightless full CG camera movement grounded within the reality the film it inhabits, and I love that. As the debris field approaches the characters, the tone changes. The jovial Kowalski suddenly switches from Joker to Commander, which tells us how serious the inbound debris is.
Put a bow on it, Dr. Stone.
I can't. The board is still initializing.
I'm not gonna ask you again.
Abruptly, debris hits the shuttle and the arm attached to it. Dr. Stone is catapulted away, and first she's seen tumbling in front of us with Earth behind her. We can see the full velocity of the impact and the rotation as she tumbles seemingly further and further away from Earth. The camera catches up with her rotation, and we're shown her perspective as she's flung wildly around, while Kowalski does the only thing he can do, talk to her on the radio.
I can't see you anymore! Do it now!
She detaches from the arm, and the camera stops and watches as she tumbles into the void, to be hidden among the stars like the shuttle was hidden at the beginning of the shot. The visual juxtaposition between the beginning of the shot and the end of the shot is really effective. The shuttle starts among the stars, but the main focus of this shot is Earth itself. And though they are orbiting above it, they're connected to Houston constantly, bantering and joking in between constant updates about critical mission elements. The shot ends with the deep void of space. Communication with Houston has been lost, and there's nothing but vast emptiness. Now, this also cuts directly to another incredibly long shot, and I don't need to spend a lot of time on this because it's mostly a close-up of Dr. Stone as she's tumbling through space, and it's unrelenting, and it's nauseating, and it's so good, but it ends like this.
Let's get out of here.
Damn it!
I know what you mean.
Damn it.
You're burning oxygen. We're going back to the shuttle. How's that for a plan? Copy.
And the shot mirrors the opening shot, with Earth taking up the majority of the frame. Dr. Stone and Kowalski have regained a little bit of control as they start their perilous journey back to Earth.
Because it only came out last year, I'm going to pause here and give a spoiler warning for 1917.
In 2019, Sam Mendes brought us 1917, a film which follows a pair of British soldiers in World War I carrying a message through enemy territory in an effort to save the lives of a nearby battalion. Mendes and director of photography Roger Deakins pulled off a nearly impossible feat. They managed to shoot 1917 so it would appear as a single shot. And yes, if you know where to look, you can see some of the seams. But they don't detract from the cinematic achievement of 1917.
And you may think it's a bit of a gimmick, and I get that because I felt the same way about 2014's Birdman. And while it's narratively rooted in a theatrical setting and it plays as a stream of consciousness of the main character, Inarritu skips time forward several times by doing a time lapse. And the time lapse breaks the continuity of time that I find so powerful with these long takes.
Ultimately, 1917 is a film about time. Lance Corporal Schofield and Blake are racing against the clock to deliver their message. It's a film about a journey, and Mendes is going to show us every second of that journey. And unlike Children of Men, where the camera was almost allowed to become its own character for the audience to inhabit, the audience's window into 1917 is a slow-moving, never-ending tracking shot tethered almost entirely to the experiences of Schofield. The film opens when he wakes up, and it ends when he goes to sleep, and we follow every step he takes along the way. Mendes is telling us that every second of this journey is crucial. This is a conflict of man versus time. Which is why the most effective moment in the film, a film which is presented as a single unbroken shot, is the moment where it breaks. Schofield is pursuing a sniper into a building, takes a bullet to the helmet, and falls down a flight of stairs. When he hits the floor, the film cuts to black, and then stays black. The time of day has shifted. We don't know how long we've been unconscious, but we know we've now lost a significant amount of time in this race against the clock. Editing provides context, and by cutting to black, Mendes is giving us the context of our relationship to the character. We aren't simply watching Schofield. We are Schofield. And unlike Rope, where the cuts were primarily due to technical limitations, the single cut to black in 1917 is so deliberate, so effective, and so crucial to the narrative and the film as a whole that any feeling that this single one-shot cinematic journey was just a gimmick has completely evaporated.
So why do we love oneers? Sure, they're a technical achievement. The rig in the Children of Men car shot is ridiculous. There's hundreds of cast and crew and elements working together to bring these shots to life. The actors don't have the luxury of editing to hide mistakes. They have to perform completely, perfectly each time. And I know how hard that is. I can barely get through a page of this script without messing up. But technical achievements aside, when done well, when done for the right narrative and story reasons, we can connect with these shots in a way that we don't normally connect with typically edited films. We experience their narrative continuously, and that continuity of time resonates with how we experience life itself. Hey, thanks for watching. I've got a lot more planned for this channel. More analysis, some reviews, but if there's anything you'd like me to cover, just mention it in the comments below. Follow me on Twitter @ScreenCheatham for updates about upcoming videos or my general thoughts about film and media. And to end, we'll say those magic YouTube words, please like and subscribe.